Hi, I'm Robert Franzen, Chief Mechanical Officer with the Grand Canyon Railway.
Robert Franzen grew up and attended college in South Carolina, graduating in 1985 from Clemson University with a mechanical engineering degree. Since then, he's worked on dozens of steam locomotives all over the country.
I'd like to tell you a few things about the rebuild of the 4960, and we're going to start here at the front of the engine and go towards the cab. We built a new pilot, welded pilot, and put a new pilot on. We put ditch lights on the engine that are removable. We put a new smoke box door on the front, centered the headlight, and brought the bell up to the top on the door. Moving on down, we rebuilt the lead truck completely. All new pins, bushings, hub liners, turned the wheel and the bearing surface on the wheel, put all lubrication to the front pony truck. The cylinders and the valves, we've completely rebuilt the valves.
Here are the new valve connecting shafts needed to be made and installed in the rebuilt valve spool. The precise length of the shaft affects the timing of the engine. Rings at each end of the spool seal in the steam as the valve slides over the ports. The new shafts were turned with extra material to be machined after Robert measured the timing or quartering of the valves in a test fitting.
Okay, Carl, let's move that combination lever forward there until we get this marked. Okay, about another inch, a little bit more.
Making the new shafts this way eliminates the need for troublesome washers or bushings.
In the piston cylinder right here, we put new rings in, turned the piston, and put a new liner in on this side and just bored the other side. And then after we put the liner in on this side, then we rebored that. Put a new lubricator on. It's an engine oil lubricator. It lubricates the pilot truck, the drivers, the hub liners, shoes and wedges, and the trailing truck, and the crossheads and the valve crossheads here. As you can see here, the lube lines here and the lube lines going to the crossheads. This lubricator has 14 feeds coming out of it, and we have splitters in between the frame there, and it eventually lubes 54 points of lubrication. You can see the new radiator pipes. The engine has all new piping on it, new welded air tanks, new rod brass. The tires were turned, crank pins were turned. The number 3 and number 2 axles have new axles. New shoes and wedges, new spring rigging, new springs, pins, bushings, hardened, case hardened. The boiler has a brand new smoke box, new stack, new front and rear flue sheet, all new tubes, new superheater units. The builder's plates that you see up there are all recast from a drawing that we had for Burlington. It's a standard drawing for Burlington engines, for the builder's plates there and the superheater plate on the other side. The hinges that are on the front of the smoke box are original. They were taken off the original smoke box door and reused. Moving on down the line here, we rebuilt the crossheads completely. Everything was machined with the guides here, the crosshead guide in here. All this was machined, rebabbited, all trued up. Everything was put in center with the center of the piston bore as far as the piston rod and the crosshead, so that everything travels level and within tolerance with the piston. The sand dome on the top there was lowered 3 inches and the stack was lowered 6 inches.
In this old view of the top of the boiler, you can see the taller stack, sand dome, and steam dome.
The steam dome was also lowered 3 inches. Over here you can see we have an air pump on this side right here. This air pump is not original. It had a water pump here, but we elected to remove the water pump and put an injector on the engineer side. So this is a brand new addition here. That way we have 2 air pumps. If one goes down, we always have the second air pump that we can bring the train home. You can see here we have a lubricator also for that. That's an air pump lubricator. It has steam oil to feed the steam side, which is the top side where the steam comes in here where this valve is here and goes out and exhausts up into the saddle where the stack is. The bottom side here is the air side, and then it has lubricator feeds that oil the air side. The firebox was completely rebuilt, all new stay bolts and sleeves. These are the sleeves, all brand new, cap sleeves and new washout plugs here. Side sheets were completely replaced. The combustion chamber, the rear door sheet, the rear flue sheet, the front corners inside the firebox, and on the back head inside the cab we replaced the part just around the door. We replaced 2,400 stay bolts. Of those, 900 were flexible. All the flexible bolts are completely drilled hollow. That allows us on your 2-year caps job, we never have to take the caps off because we can inspect the bolts through the telltale hole on the inside of the firebox. You can see here we replaced the entire grates and the ash pan that was in there and put in an oil pan and converted the engine from coal to oil. All that's brand new, all the piping underneath there. The burner is down inside here. It's all lined with fire brick on the inside. The burner shoots the oil back this way against the firewall here, and the gas and oils travel up this way against the flash wall and then up around through the crown sheet and into the tubes. All that stuff inside there is brand new. These washout plugs here are the transverse arch tubes inside the firebox. What they do is they go from the side sheets and then they curve around and cross each other and then up into the crown. What that allows is circulation of the water. The water goes from the side sheets and then travels through the pipes up to the crown and circulates in a circular pattern. The reason why we put these in is we get better water circulation, better heat transfer, and in the end we save fuel. Back in this area underneath the cab here, we had to do a lot of modifications to adapt this big tender. One of the things we had to do was raise the back end of this frame up 6.5 inches to match the buffer on the tender. You can see how it matches up real well now. We cut the frame right here in half and then welded that and stress relieved it. All the cab floor, the support walls here, the back waste sheet here are all new. The deck, the tender deck, everything is all new. The hoses, pipes, all this stuff is new. The cab is completely new except for a small section of the roof. The cab is essentially the same except the metal was just changed out. The only thing that we changed on the side is there was a window where the round sticker is with the GCR. At the top of the engine, just in front of the cab there, you can see the two generators. Those are 1,000 watt EN3 generators. This engine originally had an MO6, it was an 800 watt generator on it, and then it had a second MO6 on it that powered the train control. We elected to put bigger generators on here to handle all the lighting capacity. We added running board lights and a lot of other features with the radio and so on and so forth to where we needed the two generators. The little pot in front of the generators is our centrifugal separator. We have a centrifugal blowdown or a continuous blowdown that comes off the back of the back head and goes up in piping up there, and the steam is let off, blown off at the top, and the water is dumped out through the bottom. And that continuously blows down the boiler. And right just in front of that, you can see the whistle and the 3 pop valves. Back here in between the engine and tender, you can see the Franklin radial buffer that we added and the new drawbars that were installed. This radial buffer was not on this tender when we bought it. It had a coupler sticking in the drawbar pocket hole. The trucks were completely rebuilt on the tender. The insides, the interior were completely sandblasted and then painted with a water sealant paint, and a welded oil bunker was welded in. We also installed a new coupler on the rear and all new piping, steam piping for the steam heat, and all the air piping is all new. We built boxes here between the trucks underneath to hold our water pumps and our grease guns on the other side. And there's where the stoker is right here. You can see this was the old stoker trough here for a coal burning tender. We took the stoker out and built an oil box here. It holds all our hoses, oil, has a light inside, and it's pretty handy for the maintenance of the engine. With the rebuild, we elected to put a new tender behind the engine. The reason why was the old tender was rotted out completely. It would not hold water. The other reason was it only held 10,000 gallons of water. 10,000 gallons is what we use now, running the engine with about a 7 to 9 car train. So you can see we would not have any reserve once we got up here to the canyon. So we elected to put the new tender and get a bigger tender behind the engine. We didn't quite want this big of a tender, but it was only one of a very few tenders that are still left that I could find that was in good enough shape. So I went ahead and bought it anyway because it was in good shape. It holds 18,000 gallons of water and 3,800 gallons of oil.
We're at the shops back in May of 1996 as Franzen's crew starts a fire in 4960 for the first time. A pair of traditional Oshkosh Bagosh Railroaders coveralls were used to light the fire. This will be the first fire in 4960 since her excursion season on the Bristol and Northwestern in 1981. After a few minutes, the fire was cooking, but it took several hours for the boiler to reach 25 pounds of pressure. That was the first time 4960's whistle was blown since its rebuild. It sounded sluggish because of the low pressure. Work continued on the engine as the pressure built up. At 200 pounds, the pops lifted. The throttle was open to blow down any debris in the valve and the cylinder passages. It's now July 1996. The 4960 is all assembled and painted and about to make its first move under steam. Over 3 years of hard work have come down to this moment, and the entire shop crew climbed aboard for this memorable event. The running gear is watched closely as the locomotive continues its break-in movements. As the day wore on, the locomotive was operated faster as more successful moves were completed. It is indeed a proud day for steam fans everywhere to have this veteran back on the road. It's been 15 years since the Bristol and Northwestern trips in 1981, and 30 years since the Burlington retired her from excursion service in 1966. At the end of the day, Robert lists items to be checked and adjusted.